predicted that white Americans, black Americans would see this situation very differently. We now have a new poll from Pew Research. It does show that very thing. When asked if the police response to the shooting had gone too far or was just about right, whites were nearly equally divided. Fully 65% of African Americans say the police have gone too far in responding to the shooting's aftermath. I'm wondering your reaction to that.
The poll doesn't surprise me at all. Basically, racism is a disease that really sinks into the very fabric of the foundation on which this country was founded.
All right, folks, joining us now to talk about all this is two folks on the panel today. Columnist and contributing editor for Wrigt.com, David Swerdlick, is back, as is columnist for Breitbart.com and American thinker C. Edmund Wrig. Welcome to both of you guys. And let me start with you, David. We're talking about the divide between black and white. Before we get to a piece you wrote about the president's response to all of this, why such a great divide?
Well, I think right now you have a situation, and certainly historically, but right now particularly, where many African Americans, most African Americans, along the lines of that poll that you just cited, don't feel like the police are there to protect them in many cases, and feel like that there are many cases when their police treat African Americans differently than police treat other people that they're interacting with. In the last month, we've had this string of incidents: Ezell Ford in Los Angeles, Marlene Pinnock, who was beaten by the side of the road by the California Highway Patrol, Eric Garner in New York City, the Staten Island situation, and then the Ferguson case. So people feel like African Americans are under threat in a lot of instances from police, not all, but many.
And what about it, Edmund? Is that a justified feeling?
Well, I think he touched on one issue, Steve, that I think was present early on after Ferguson, and that was the typical conservative, rush to support the cops was not really there for all of the reasons that he mentioned. However, Ferguson has morphed in the last 96 hours, and it's nothing now but a fantasy that's being driven to get out the vote and raise funds for certain Democrat activists and for the Democrat Party facing a disaster in 2014. Nobody's telling the truth. Everyone, the media is really probably driving this divide more than anything else, because most of the media is simply not reporting what has actually gone on in Ferguson.
David, the president, certainly he was different than during the Trayvon case, different than the Cambridge case where he said the police acted stupidly. But, here we have a case, and the president had to have known or should have known, as does the attorney general know, I'm sure, what the bulk of the witnesses have reportedly said, what the police story is, and that the accusations that he was shot in the back by the eyewitnesses, who also said he had his hands up when he was shot in the back, were wrong. You have a cop claiming that, and it's going to be very easy to verify this, because not only are there supposedly already witnesses, but you could verify if he has a broken eye socket, if the gun went off in a struggle with Brown in the car, if he ran away and then came charging back at him. And the police officer fired in self-defense. I mean, is this the fight to talk about police acting inappropriately or brutality, when if that's the scenario, the cop acted appropriately?
Well, I'm not going to say the cop acted appropriately or not appropriately in this case, Steve. I'm one of those people that still says, let the facts all come in and let a judge and jury decide.
I said if that's right. The case, and
okay, so
then certainly the cop acted appropriately.
Here's the thing. It can both be true that the cop had a reason potentially to stop Michael Brown, and also be true that he had no justifiable reason for exerting deadly force at the end when Michael Brown was killed. Both of those things can be true. And so I would like to know all the witness testimony in open court before I give my opinion on that. But I don't think there's anything wrong with the way that the president and the attorney general have handled it. I mean, first of all, the president in his statement could not have been more even-handed. He offered condolences for the family. He talked about the need for the police not to use excessive force. He said, let all the facts come in, and he asked people to remain calm. Then he sent the attorney general, the nation's top law enforcement official, to look into it. I don't see how anyone finds fault with that approach.
Well, I mean, Edmund, we already have 2 autopsies. The Attorney General orders a 3rd. We already have an investigation proceeding. It's before a grand jury. Why is the Attorney General involved at all?
Well, I don't think that the president nor the attorney general want to get to the bottom of it. I'm sorry, I just don't trust their motives there. Again, Rahm Emanuel told us that Chicago politics has never let a crisis go to waste. This is a crisis that certain parts of the Democrat liberal establishment are using to try and change the subject off the last 6 years of failure and try and change the trajectory of what looks to be a disastrous midterm for them. That's what Eric Holder wants. That's what Barack Obama wants. I have no reason to believe they really want to get to the bottom of it. If they did, then we would hear more from Obama, not balanced, but more about what needs to be said about some of the eyewitness testimony that has been taken.
David,
Yes.
Final word, David.
Steve, I couldn't disagree more strongly with Edmund. It's one thing to take issue with the way the president and the attorney general have handled this, but to come up with the kind of theory that he's doing this for political gain, I think makes no sense anyway, but certainly makes no sense in light of the way that they've publicly approached this and spoken about it. I just think it doesn't even add up.
All right, gentlemen, this debate will continue, unfortunately, for quite some time, I'm afraid. Thank you both, columnist and contributing editor for Wrigt.com, David Swerdlick, and columnist for Breitbart.com and American thinker, C. Edmund Wright. And, oh, wait a minute. Okay, gentlemen, we do have more time. I thought it was kind of quick. Don't go away. Don't go away. So let me ask you this, David. We have more time, so that was my mistake, or my bad,
Okay.
as they say. Jesse Jackson said to me when I presented to him the cops' theory of what happened, or the cops' account of what happened, according to reports. I didn't even mention that the Washington Post published a report from someone who knows is intimately involved with the investigation that there was marijuana found in his body. We saw the video of him robbing the store, or shoplifting, as Al Sharpton made sure to distinguish, pushing the guy twice, and then the reports of grabbing for the cop's gun, going off, punching the cop, the whole thing. And yet Jesse Jackson, and I gave him those stats and those alleged facts, and I said, is there any circumstance, under which this police officer would have been legitimate in your mind in shooting Michael Brown? And he said no. Now, that is a very dangerous thing to say. Is it not, taking away a cop's right to defend himself?
If the police officer was, in fact, and obviously none of us was actually there, if the police officer's life was in danger, then police officers do have a right to use deadly force. But based on the facts as we know them, or as I believe we know them, at the moment when those several bullets, the kill shots went to Michael Brown, it's not clear to me that the police officer's life was in danger. And I certainly don't think that the marijuana or some of these other things they play into what Michael Brown was doing leading up to that incident. They don't play into, in my mind, whether or not lethal force was justified in the moment that lethal force was applied. That's just the way I see it.
Well, Edmund, we have no way of knowing. But of course, if there's marijuana and any other drugs in his system, as the cop allegedly told the officials when he shot him, his explanation, because of the way he was acting, the way he charged at him, the way he said, "You're not going to shoot me," etc. And this unarmed. And you don't think the cop's life was in danger. It doesn't matter what we think. It matters what he thinks. And if he had been beaten and been punched in the face and broken his eye socket and had his gun reached for once by this guy, who if he is then charging at him, he has every right to use deadly force. Because guess what? We know he's unarmed, and that's what everybody keeps saying. But first of all, he doesn't know he's unarmed. He didn't search the guy. He has no idea what he has on his person.
Well,
Edmund?
you're correct. You're correct, Steve. And keep in mind, this was what we were told was the gentle giant. Well, we found out he is indeed a giant, but not so gentle after all. But again, this is part of the media, and this is part of the Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson wing of the party doing the bidding of the president and the attorney general. Absolutely. And that's why they are doing everything they can to try and create this myth of a gentle giant, unarmed, minding his own business, executed by a white cop. I mean, just pushing that narrative. They want you to think that Bull Connor, is running the Republican Party. And by the way, he was
right. So, final word to David. Now it's the final word for this segment, David. Go ahead.
Look, again, I think you can have a long discussion, and there will be a long discussion about what actually happened in those few seconds when Michael Brown was shot. This idea that Edmund is talking about, that there's some kind of conspiracy between Obama and Holder and Sharpton and the liberal media, I just think he's off on a wrong track about that. I read Edmund's piece in American Thinker, and I thought he had some interesting things to say about, government using excessive force. And now that the narrative has changed a little bit, I'm not sure what he's basing this thing.
All right, David Swerdlick and Edmund Wright. We'll continue this another time. Thank you, guys.